is first of all just how do you feel like your guys responded to a late change last week and losing Julian?
Yeah, I had the late scratch. I thought they answered the bell in terms of getting themselves ready mentally. The way they played, it's not easy to move from guard to tackle, let alone from one side of the line to the other. And on, I think Jordan played 20 some odd reps against Wyoming, so it's not like he had a full game under his belt. So I thought they both played fairly well. I mean, there's some mistakes, and Isaiah gave up the sack at the end of the game, but that was that was a good move by that kid. 41 had a good pass rush move, and it's hard to transition. The way we set our guards, all of a sudden, then he's going out to a tackle in a vertical set in a critical moment of the game, at the end of the game, at 92 plays, like play 91, I think is when it happened. In an obvious passing situation, that's hard for anybody, And I have utmost confidence in Isaiah at any of those positions, and I thought he played pretty well. Jordan did as well. He answered the call and did a good job switching over at that last minute. Up until the game day or game time, we really didn't know if Julian was going to be able to go or not. So I thought they answered, competed, played really well overall, all things considered. Just collectively as a unit, we made a few mistakes down there towards the end that on those critical situations in the goal line that really ended up affecting ultimately the outcome of the game. And so we take that very personally. And every coach is going to probably say the same thing, something about their position, something happened here, the coordinator's going to take ownership of the call. But in the O-line, we always take that pretty hard, because that's ultimately our job is to get in the end zone. And so we did. We took it hard, and it's a big point of emphasis this week in practice.
How much of a learning experience was that fourth down? I mean, that drive that ended with the turnover on downs late, especially for you guys.
I think anytime you go through something like that, you can learn from it. You better learn from it, right? There's a long drive. For the second week in a row, we're a tempo offense and we're dominating the time of possession, and for the most part, controlling line of scrimmage, really. 250 some odd yards both games rushing the football. That doesn't just happen, And a team like Indiana, they pressured just about every play, and we knew that going in. There was going to be a high pressure game, high blitz game, and the way those guys answered, I'm very proud of how hard they played, very hard. And for the second week in a row, I thought we out-physicaled them. We just made some mistakes mentally that we can't afford. You can't do that and still expect to win in the Big Ten. So growing through that process, that long drive, being able to muster up enough for one more call, one more play, and be able to physically move them off the line of scrimmage, and then, not turn, obviously, the nose loose and things like that. So there's some things that we grow from, learn from, everybody across the board, and myself included.
And Coach Bryce and Isaac over here when you guys are ready for him.
Coach Bielman made a point of saying after the first game that outside of Palcho, everybody else was either in a new spot or brand new to this team on your line. Just how have you maybe seen that when you get Julian back, that first group maybe come together as they're trying to figure out kind of where they are now?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of cohesiveness in the group, a lot of cohesion in the group. They take a lot of pride in that. They like each other. They like working together. Some of that, the growing pains of game one, if you look on the goal line, the very first play when Tommy gets hit on the score against Wyoming, right? Wyoming's running a guy in late, and it kind of threw off our count. And Julian set out on what he thought was his proper count. The late guy to the mix kind of screwed that up, and just having those guys be together and experience over the course of a year, that they would be able to find that out. They'd be able to slide to that, right? So there's little things like that just come with experience together. And then we obviously had a wrench thrown into it against Indiana, but again, I thought we didn't have those same measures of issues. We didn't have guys turning guys loose and jumping out on things and stuff like that. We had the one issue on the goal line, but other than that, from a frontline standpoint, they are starting to come together. Jordan has worked well on the right side. Obviously, he got experience on the left. And is a pretty headsy player, pretty savvy player. So, that has certainly helped. And like I said, I think in a couple other interviews, right, we've got about 6-7 guys that we trust right now. 7 guys we trust in there right now that have all played and are doing an admirable job. But we have to take another step. We have to take a step to clean things up from an execution standpoint. And the more they're together cohesively, the better that's going to be.
Is there any unique challenge at all when the interior of the line is maybe the the newest part? Because I mean, you know, Julian's like been around.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge, right? And there's nothing against Pilstrom or Kreutz or Isaiah or Zai or Jordan, none of those guys, because they're all very talented and they're good football players. But it is Pill's second game at center, right? Or Bill coming into his third game at center. We had Doug Kramer who started for his whole career here at the University of Illinois. So Doug was an incredibly experienced player and worked tremendously hard, and Pill does as well. It's just there's a lot to learn at that position. What we put on that position it is difficult. It is challenging. He's the commander of that line, and he's got to make calls. He's got to see things that others don't. He's responsible for all 5 of those guys making those calls. And Julian does have some experience. He can see things well out there, right? That was new for Isaiah, right? At the guard spot, we don't ask them to look at the perimeter. And so now he had to do that. He had to go out there and look at the perimeter in Indiana and, handled it fairly well. I don't think he had any MEs on that type of stuff. So, it's definitely a challenge for the interior, not having that baseline experience, but they are growing, they're getting better. And I'm excited where they're headed, guys. We got a talented group and a physical group. And I'm excited to see where we can go.
Pillow talked about his communication and his confidence. Like, where are you seeing he is at in that regard to his game?
I think he's getting better, right? And he's presented with different situations every week, right? And he learned some hard lessons, and we've talked about the goal line until we're blue in the face with him. And the play before, he goes to the front side and blocks that guy. And the next play, it's basically the same defensive structure, but there's a little nuances to the call, and he makes the decision to work back and turns the nose loose, and that's a frustrating thing to see. But I also see what his point, and so just learning those things I think is very, very, very valuable for him to go through that experience. He had the 2 penalties against Wyoming, the only 2 penalties we had against Wyoming on the O-line, and then we had none against the line against Indiana. That's growth by him, right? That's learning how to play. He was much better on his combinations. The Chase's long run in the first drive, I think Indiana brings us pressure off the edge. They game it. Pill ends up picking up the game, which is not an easy game to pick up. He does a great job, and Chase has a big run, right? And so there's things like that you're seeing that took Doug some time to grasp as well, and he's picking that up. So I think he's growing in confidence. I think our trust in him is not wavering. I think to be a good leader, you have to empower your guys to play and to make some mistakes and not to play fearful or cautious. And so I think he's taking a big step there. And Josh Kreutz is doing a great job preparing himself as well. So like I said, I feel good about where we're headed, but we have to eliminate the self-inflicted wounds. We have to eliminate some of the mental errors that do cost us maybe a first down, right? As you look at the last drive, and if we just finish one more play on Tommy's draw, he breaks that thing, maybe even scores, right? So there's just one little thing here and there, a greater finish, maybe not necessarily a different call. I thought Pill was pretty good on his calls, but some execution on those calls, and now we're not talking about 250 a game rushing, we're talking about 3, and instead of 2 sacks early on, we're talking about none, and so we feel pretty good about where we're headed. We got to do it now.